Welcome to the Nerd Journey Podcast. Our goal is to help you, the technology professional, accelerate your career progression, increase your job satisfaction, and be more effective in your existing role.
We want to bring listeners like you the career advice we wish we'd been given earlier in our careers.
I'm John White, at VJourneyman on Twitter, sharing co-host duties with Nick Cordy at NetworkNerd_.
We're two former IT operations guys who have moved on to pre-sales roles with technology vendors. We have our opinions, but we also like to highlight the journeys of others and see what we can learn from them.
We'd also like to ask for your feedback to make this a conversation, not a one-way broadcast. Email us at nerdjourneypodcast@gmail.com or DM us at nerdjourney on Twitter. So come join us on our nerd journey.
Let's take a trip. Episode 342. Unfortunately, your role at this company has been eliminated. Those are the words that none of us ever want to hear. But in a world of tech layoffs, people are hearing it a lot more than we like to admit. This week, we have a story you don't want to miss on the topic of layoffs. We introduced you to Jason Gass several episodes ago when we reviewed the book Finish by Jon Acuff. But he's back with us this week as a guest to tell the story of what it was like to receive that unfortunate news of being laid off and what happened next as a result. In part one of our discussion with Jason, you'll get to hear about the initial reaction to that unexpected phone call and how Jason processed it. Jason's going to share how he approached his job search in terms of finding new opportunities, the helpful tools that he utilized, making new contacts and building connections, all while trying to balance the emotional exhaustion of the entire process. Here we go with part one of our discussion with Mr. Jason Gass.
Jason Gass, welcome back to the Nerd Journey Podcast. I think we had you on episodes 272 to 275, and we were having a conversation about the book Finish. But man, it's really nice to have you back.
Yeah, appreciate it having me back on the show, guys.
Well, this was actually your idea, Jason. You joined us as a guest host in that book series on Finish, which is a great idea, by the way, also yours. But the way we wanted to frame this one up is we wanted to tell your story through the lens of something that is very relevant in our industry, and that is the topic of layoffs in tech. And we see it happen more and more over the past couple years. We've had friends impacted, and I know you had some thoughts on going through it, what happened during and after, and we'd like to sort of have a conversation, peel back the onion, beginning to end, and showcase some of those lessons learned.
Like I said, it's been a journey going through the process which a lot of my colleagues are going through right now, where unexpectedly had a job loss and going through the process of finding a new job, and wanted to kind of share what worked and what didn't.
Let's start at the beginning, if you don't mind. Tell us a little bit about the kind of role you were in and what you liked about that kind of work.
Sure. The last 5 years, I've been in a sales engineering, system engineer type of role for a variety of different manufacturer vendor software companies. What I like the best about it is working with customers and the partners associated with it. I think the best part is solving problems that are always constantly changing. Every customer has a different problem that when I walk in the door. I love how going in there and say, hey, you have this problem. How can I help you with the solution? How do I make your day-to-day better?
Yeah, it's a great attitude to have. Well, without sharing any specifics that make it uncomfortable, just take us through the day the layoff happened, how you found out, and kind of that immediate visceral reaction in a moment.
The company I was at had been acquired some time prior. So we knew there was changes happening, and that's common. So my team knew, hey, it might happen to us. We just didn't know when. So having that precursor, I think, definitely helped. I got a call, just like most people do. They get a call from your manager, your upper management, depending on what process they are in the layoffs and who's getting impacted, and just said, your position is being eliminated. It's a quick call. I understand that. It's legality-wise, they can't say much. They just kind of walk you through the the note card of what's the next steps. It's formal. It's nothing against the person. I just get it. It's the formality of it. It's just the way these things happen.
Was there an emotional impact to getting that call?
Yeah, I remember seeing it. I knew exactly what was going to happen as soon as I saw the number pop up my phone. Having the previous knowledge that layoffs were going to happen, I was prepared as much as I could. It's still a gut punch. Man, I can't believe I didn't make the cut. What's wrong with me? Why was it me versus somebody else?
That's interesting. So there's still some self-critique. Even knowing that it's coming, there's still a little bit of some negative self-talk.
Yeah, it's definitely a self-reflection. I've gone through this a couple times. During the 2008 financial crisis, I got laid off a couple times. Looking back, that's probably a good experience because I've gone through it once before. The one thing was I learned from that experience is these things happen and a lot of good things happen afterwards, but it's hard to have that lens when it first happens. You have that everything emotionally hits you. All those thoughts start going through your head, like how am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to support my family? How long is it going to get the next gig? It's all those components that you start thinking and having that rush. When you look back later on, you look at it with a different point of view. It's like, wow, a lot of good things happen out of that. Maybe I got a better position or with a different company I always wanted to work for. I've made more money, which is always a good thing. Sometimes we get complacent wherever we're working at and we forget what our value in the marketplace is. So sometimes this forces us out of our comfort zone. And it's a good thing well after the fact when you're back on your feet.
I guess it's another good reminder, too, that we're not really living in the age of having a job for life. And in the current corporate environment, they can be fairly ruthless in eliminating roles. And that's just a fact of life.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I remember back in 2008, I remember just thinking, hey, I'm a line item on a spreadsheet. It's hard to think that way. And it's not negative. I finally realized it's just business. It's not personal. But it opened up my eyes of how the world really is. And it reminded me of, hey, I'm a player in this game and I still have control. It's what I do with that control. That's where I finally realized, hey, I need to make sure that I know my value in the marketplace. I'm keeping up with my skill sets. So in the event that something like this does happen or I'm ready for a change, I'm still relevant.
And maybe we aren't mindful of the control that we have, or we just don't exercise that control because we're so focused on get up every day, do the thing you're supposed to do a good job, and then do it again.
Yeah. You get in a reoccurring cycle, I guess. And that's normal. That's life. It's called routine, right? And we like routines. Not all of us like chaos.
Yeah, there's comfort in it. I guess knowing exactly what it is that you're going to do and not at all thinking about the chaos that could be coming, right? If you think that it's a possibility, then you have to acknowledge it and then you have to emotionally react to it before it even happens. And it might not happen. So a lot of us, just avoid. I don't want to have to think about that, so I won't.
Yeah, it's easy to just hide. You asked about the reaction. And I think this is an important part of, hey, when this does happen, you have that emotional gut punch. Some advice that was given to me, but I didn't follow, was when it does happen, you can take time for yourself. You should. You should take several days or maybe a week to just let it all settle in. I didn't do that. I started making calls within about 5-10 minutes afterwards and started calling people, letting people know, hey, I'm looking, I'm on the market. If you know anything, let me know. It caught up with me. About 4 days later, that emotional drain finally came down on me and it mentally drained me. The best advice that I read years ago, and I don't remember where, but I've given it out to a lot of people that have gone through this, is you get hit, you can take time to recover, a period of time, a few days, a week, but your new job is now to find your next new job. You stay in that routine. If you were getting up at 6:30 in the morning, going to the gym, you still do that. At 8 o'clock, you make your cup of coffee. And then your job is to, just like you would with customers or calls or operations, what would you normally be doing? You'd be doing some form of task. Your next task would be, how I'm going to now land my next job. And that's looking on LinkedIn, polishing your resume, fixing your profile, reaching out to your network, is starting to look at where do I start meeting people in person again. Post-COVID, that's become a lost art form, but there are so many user groups in the industry, great new people. I found out there was a group of people that met and helped people when they were unemployed and looking. And they were helping coaching people with their resumes and things like that. I didn't need it at the moment, but I know a lot of other people that have gone through that resource and it's really helped them out.
That's awesome, man. You mentioned the emotional reaction and the steps you took immediately versus what happened later. Was there an issue with identity? Like if I don't do this thing, I don't know who I am anymore? And I know some people experience that, and I just was curious what it was like for you.
I guess just like we've talked a few minutes ago is, hey, this is a job and I love my job. I love what I do, but that's not my only identity. Some people do wrap up that this is what they are all about. There's things outside the workplace that I have so much more passion for. Knowing that the call may have happened, I think helped with that. But I also know by staying out there, knowing the marketplace and knowing that there's opportunities out there. I'm here in Dallas, Fort Worth, and I just know every day I open up the newspaper, we still get that, or it comes across my Facebook feed for my local city, what new company is moving their headquarters here? There's no shortage of opportunities. It's just making sure that you're the one that fits the bill and actually is chosen through all the chaos. There's a lot of people out in the marketplace that you're fighting for that same role.
You had this emotional reaction about 4 days in. You felt emotionally drained. Was there a process that you used to get through that, kind of that speed bump? Or was it more than just a speed bump? Did it set you back a lot more than that?
There was good days and there was bad days. I'll admit that. You'll go through calls and interviews and find out you're not chosen. So you'll have good days. Hey, I had all these interviews. And then there's the days where I didn't get chosen. I didn't get chosen to move on, or they chose the other candidate. So it's up and down. What helped me the most was I had my wife, talked to my wife. I communicated with other colleagues. I still talked to Nick. I still talked to my colleagues that were still there because I wanted to see how they were doing because there was a big transition with the team. I had other resources that were available to me. People throughout the country, I came across one of my colleagues and friends, created a chat group with displaced people that were going through the same thing as I were. Now, we were in different positions, maybe different sales positions, technical positions. There was other people going through what I was going through. We're in the boat together. And at least, if you were frustrated, you could call up people and let them know. I had my account rep had been laid off several months prior, but he had gotten back on his feet. And he provided the same platform that I gave him. He said, call me anytime. Even if you just need to shout and scream and complain, just to let it out. I didn't realize how important that was when I gave it to him until I needed that same platform.
Yeah, having somebody that can support you through that is such an important thing. We need family, of course. We need peers. It's probably not fair to dump it all on the family. It's probably not fair to dump it all on one peer. So to have a group of people that you can reach out to, depending on the specific situation, that feels really powerful. That's a really good tip.
The group worked out really well because a lot of us were so many different parts of the country. So if I saw a position for like a sales rep job, I would post it in the channel. Say, hey, I saw this is posted. It's not for me, but one of you in this area might want to check it out. Or I would see a sales engineering role because a lot of times you'll see the posting and it may include your area, but it may include other regional that they're looking for. You post it in there and like, hey, I didn't get it, but I also saw they're also hiring these other areas. Take a look. If you want, I'll do an introduction to the people that I know. One of the nice things is that I met a lot of great people. I didn't get chosen. I might not have been the final candidate through the process, but I made a lot of great connections through the whole process. So even if I didn't get it chosen, I still made connections where I could say, hey, I know someone over here. Do you mind talking to them?
In the cases where you didn't get chosen and you made those connections, did you ask the people that you had spoken to if you could stay in touch? More of a strategy behind how to maintain some of those connections over time?
It wasn't formally asked. A lot of times while I was interviewing, they're saying, hey, this is great. They connected with me on LinkedIn. They would say, reach out to me down the road. I did reach out to a lot of them on LinkedIn afterwards saying I appreciated their time and really enjoyed meeting their entire team because I wanted to build it up for the future. What I found is this particular industry where we're talking about sales engineering, it's a large field, but a small amount of players. And I related to people like trading baseball cards. You start seeing the same people, they just rotate from one company to another. That's what I found is, hey, it didn't work out this time around. That's understandable. We don't know where we're going to be 3, 4, 5 years down the road.
I will say, having been a hiring manager, you are constantly looking to build that bench. And if you ever do a final panel or a final round, at that point, you've hopefully decided that any of these people could do the job. Just because you have to pick one doesn't mean that the other two weren't worthy of that position. Somebody has to win and somebody has to lose in that situation. So I would say, good hiring managers are constantly thinking, well, this person could work out in this other spot, down the road. And I need to keep in touch with this person.
Yeah, it reminded me when I first was getting into sales engineering, interviewed with a company down in Austin, and I didn't get the role then, but I stayed in contact with the hiring manager on LinkedIn. And he saw I was posting, hey, I was doing this stuff in Toastmasters. I was posting a little bit of content here and there, but it wasn't like a full-time gig. I wasn't constantly posting it once a week. Made that connection, stayed in touch with him. I think it was 3 years later. He posted on LinkedIn, I'm hiring for my team, if anyone knows anyone. I reached out to him instantly and said, hey, remember me? I'm still interested in coming and working for you. He said, absolutely. You're a great candidate. It was splitting hairs between you and the other person. And I would love to have you interview with my team.
That's how you do it.
Exactly.
I would say there's probably a little bit of an emotional balance that you have to go through when you're doing a job search. There's a certain level of urgency. It is a little bit like sales prospecting, right? You got to fill the top of the funnel. You got to move the prospects that are in the funnel further down, further qualify in or out, do a sales job on the people that you still have in there. So we're maybe a little bit more acclimated to that process, but there's definitely more skin in the game when you're talking about your next career position than can I make a sale? So how did you handle that, like emotional regulation?
I thought of it the same way, ironically. I remember thinking I have to have pipeline. And pipeline, for those that are in sales, is, hey, got to have prospecting deals that I could close, hopefully this quarter, next quarter. I thought of the same concept of when I'm applying and looking for jobs. Oh, I got these 3 jobs. It looks like really good. I'm interviewing this week. I'm going to have an offer. And then Friday comes around and you find out they all turn flat. Until you get something that you decide, you get an offer, you may get multiple offers, something, until you sign that line, that dotted line saying, yes, I'm going to accept this, just keep crushing it. Keep out there looking, maintaining it. It was definitely a marathon. And what I tell people is that when I got laid off at the beginning of November, it was an interesting time, but I interviewed a hard 4 months. It was harder than working a normal job. And I think the hardest part about it is that you always have to be on. You always have to be ready to take a call from a recruiter or a hiring manager. Some of the jobs they were trying to really fill really quick. And I remember I was out Christmas shopping and they're like, hey, can you do this call right now or in 30 minutes? Yeah, I can. If you don't mind, just let them know I'm out. I'm not away from my house, but I can go to my car. I can't be on video unless they just want to see me sit in my car. I remember I interviewed so much in 1 week. I talked so much, I lost my voice.
Wow.
Because you're always on. I had multiple interviews throughout the day. I went through a process which I called the gauntlet. I had one company interview, had 4 people back to back. I think I had one 15-minute break. It's hard, right? We're not used to talking that long. Even in our normal day-to life, we go see a customer, client, or you go see your boss, a business unit. You might talk for a few minutes here and there with a lot of breaks, but we're not going out there and talking for 4-6 hours a day like a professional speaker.
No. Guys like Brendan Burchard who do keynotes and stuff in classes all day, he says he has to work out and exercise and do all the things so he has enough energy to make it through a certain number of days in a row of 9 hours a day speaking. So yeah, I believe it.
I was exhausted just mentally. But it was a good thing. That meant I had activity. That meant I was moving the pendulum in the right direction. And it felt good that I knew something was going to happen. I knew offer was going to come. I just had to stay diligent.
Was there anything special that you did to keep track of all the stuff you had going in your pipeline of activity and what stage it was at and what you needed to follow up with?
I didn't take as diligent notes, but I definitely had either a Word document, a OneNote, Excel spreadsheet of where I applied, who I talked to, action items, maybe what I talked about salary, because a lot of these jobs have a large range and sometimes you have to see where you fall. I do have a friend that interviewed a year ago. I don't know how he did it, but I think he applied for like 1,000 jobs. I think he got a 5% return rate on it. But he kept a Excel spreadsheet of all the places that he applied for, who he talked to, what the salaries range was. The biggest tip I got out of that was he had multiple resumes and he kept track of which resume got the most response. And he had all this data. It was very interesting. He said, hey, I was able to fine tune which resume really got the most looks. Now, I'm not a big proponent. I feel like he was playing the numbers game. A lot of the positions that he applied for, he was qualified for. I won't take that away because of the industry that he was in, there was just that many openings. But there is this new game. I think people just play, hey, I gotta play the shotgun or the fishnet approach and just apply for everything. And it's caused some problems out there. Job postings are getting 500 applicants. How does the person at the other end of that, how are they filtering that? That same friend told me when he was at a position, they had an opening. Because I told him I was getting frustrated. I said, man, you see this on LinkedIn, there's a button there and it says 500 people applied. What's the point? Why should I even bother applying? He's like, listen, that's not the real number. That number is how many people clicked on the link because it usually is going off to a third-party site. Not everyone actually then fills out the application. So that number is inflated. So 2, you said we had a position and we got 500 people. The first 200 people weren't even in the geographical area. So they were automatically removed because this was a position that wasn't remote. They had to be on-prem. That gets you down to 300 people. And he said, then you go through the next 200 people and they don't have the skill sets that we're looking for. So we start molding that through and going through that. Then we're down to the last 100. That's when we have to filter down to who are we going to finally interview. It's caveats on both sides because you might be a great candidate for the role. You might read that description and say, hey, I could do everything in that job. But how do I get my resume noticed if there's so many other people? There's a lot of great candidates and then there's some middle of the road candidates. There's a lot of cloudiness in the water. So how do you make yourself stand out?
I think you pointed out something, and that is not to play the numbers game, right? The recommendations I've always made are, really qualify the positions that you're looking for and then actually do a custom resume, for that position, because the keywords and the skills and things that they're looking for are slightly different from the other ones, right? And maybe the language that they use is slightly different. There's this qualification tool in the industry called MEDIC. It's an acronym, and there's a variation called MEDPIC. And if they say MEDIC, then you should probably say that you have experience with MEDIC. And if they say MEDPIC, then you should probably say that you have experience with MEDPIC and not the other one. That's been my point of view, but I would love to hear your point of view on that kind of thing. The time and effort that it does take to do a customized resume is significant.
Yeah. I was given some advice from a person that I knew, and he said, hey, use AI to help you with your resume. Everyone has their own opinion of what's happening with AI and the places. So, and there's lots of different tools out there. And of course, now people see, hey, they could tell that you wrote something with AI and then you start getting discounted. I feel like we're having AI wars. We have AIs writing resumes and then we have AI analyzing the resumes before even a single person even looks at it. I did find a good tool out there. It was LinkedIn's career level. And you pay, I think it was like $30 a month, but they have AI tools built into it. And what I liked about it is it would look at an existing resume of mine, and I would look at a job that I think I would be interested in, and it would look up my resume and match it up and give me suggestions how to modify my resume to fit that job description. And what I started finding was patterns. So you start finding certain keywords that you start seeing the same or different job descriptions over and over again. So you start getting your resume tailored for these systems. And so it really helped me with producing a cover letter. And of course, AI is not the last step. Then after AI, you still need to go through, groom it. Is this accurate? Is this true? Does it sound like me? You still have to go and do the finishing touches. And that really helped me, I feel like, get my LinkedIn profile corrected. It helped me write some cover letters. It helped me write some messages through InMail, where if you're not connected to a person, there's sometimes almost a paywall. You can't connect to some people unless you have InMail credits. It allowed me to reach out to some hiring managers, which I didn't have access to in the past, and say, hey, I'm interested in this position. I'm interested in your company. And it helped me write that message because I'm a tech guy. I was always more of a math science person. I was never a great writer. The tool really did help me polish my messaging.
Especially, I suppose, if part of the job is reaching out to people on LinkedIn and connecting with them, actually doing that as part of your process of applying for the job, shows like, hey, this is what I do.
Yeah. I finally got comfortable enough of just reaching out to people that I may not know. If you find a company that you want to go work for, and I did do that. I created a list, I think, of top 10 places. And I think, you know what? I think I would like to go work for these companies because I had heard great things about them through various ways, people that had worked there or still working there. If I knew someone already there, I would reach out to them, definitely. And say, hey, I'm interested in this position. Can you get me in front? Can you get my resume? Can you put in a good word? And that kind of helps game the system. Maybe they're willing to just go find who the hiring manager is and say, hey, I know this person, you have this position. Just getting the resume in front. They can tell the internal recruiter, hey, reach out to this person. I think he'd be a good person to talk to. I also found companies that I didn't know anyone at. I would find the hiring manager, the local regional sales engineering manager that was covering the territory, and just reach out to them and just say, hey, I know it's Q4 or it's the end of 2024. I'm really interested in the position. If one pops up, do you know if you're going to have anything opening in Q1 or next year in January? And a lot of them will say, we're still working that out. We're figuring it out. But yeah, we plan on having openings out next year. And I planted a lot of seeds that way.
Yeah. Again, hiring managers literally want a bench of people. So when they have an open requisition, they already know like maybe 5 people that they can put in that pipeline. So when you reach out to them, you might explicitly say, hey, I know that you don't have any listings right now, but if you're looking for a bunch of people to reach out to in the future, I'd love to chat with you, maybe get an informational interview about the organization. Again, knowing full well that you don't have a position right now, but so that, you've at least vetted me for, at some point in time in the future when you do have one.
I never did the LinkedIn hire me circle, green circle. A lot of people did. And I heard a lot of pros and cons behind that. I get it. You apply it, then everyone knows that you're looking and it might create traction. For the first few months, I just targeted my network or LinkedIn. And in the end, that's what got me 95% of my interviews was working my network, talking to people, connecting with people through several different means and avenues. My role where I'm at now, I reached out when I first got that call saying, hey, I was going to be laid off. I called up a couple different people, called up some internal people because I knew there might be some internal roles that I could switch into because that's a good first path to say, hey, my role is being eliminated, but is there another role within the company that is going to have openings? I think that's the first good shot. Called up another friend of mine. I've been friends with him for years. He was my SE when I was a customer and he had left the company, went to another company. This is a good note. He said, I hate to hear that happened to you. Let me find out who the hiring manager is in your area. He didn't know the hiring manager, but he found who it was, made an email introduction, and I found that the company was a sponsor at a local tech event coming up in 2 weeks. And I said, hey, I see that your company is a sponsor. Are you going to be there by any chance? He said, yeah, I'm going to be out there working the booth with some of my other guys. I said, great, I'm going to be there as well. And so I stopped by, shook his hand, got to meet him in person. And he asked me to share my resume. I shared my resume. He didn't have any openings at the time. He shared it around, but nothing was opening. Once again, this was the end of the year. And that's a tricky time when positions are open and sometimes people are looking real quick. Sometimes they're just still planning. Nothing came out of it then. We're talking November timeframe. March comes around. My friend pings me again to say, hey, there's been some changes. There's an opening. Are you available? I said, yeah, I'm still looking. And he's like, great, this person wants to talk to you. So that seed that I planted in November ended up sprouting in February. And then in the end, landed me a position.
Wow. I like what you said about looking internally and externally. But in terms of like which people to call first or the first top 10, did you already have that mental list made? Like, if this happens, these are the people I would call? Was it just an instinct? How did you decide?
Yeah, the first person I called, actually, he was my manager at a previous job. And we both worked together. He and I both ended up at this other company. And he had always been a great mentor for years. We're talking, I've known him since 2012, so 12, 13 years. And so he was the first one that I called. Fortunately, he and I had talked over the last 6 months or so. And I said, you know what? I'm not exactly sure where I'm at this particular role is for me. And so I was starting to think, hey, what else is out there? And he said, hey, my particular business unit is going to have some changes and we plan on having some openings. So I immediately thought of that, and he and I had already talked about it. I said, hey, I'd be interested in talking to whoever you could recommend about if there's going to be any openings soon for that particular role. After that, like I said, the first day, I would never recommend it to anyone. I talked to probably a dozen people the first day. I got the call at like 9 o'clock. I was on the phone till 5 o'clock that afternoon, talking to a variety of different people. I don't think it was any form or rhyme or reason. I talked to some internal people just to find out, one, if they were safe, if they were good. A lot of people have ears to the ground. They hear about these shakeups. They know about different openings in other departments, especially the people that have been there for years and years and years, because they know all the people. And I think the first good step is saying, hey, if I don't have to go out there in the wild, wild west and look for a whole new job, if I'm happy with the company where I'm at, I get that they're just doing an organizational change and this is just part of way of doing business. Hey, can I just migrate into another role? Can I cover a different territory? Instead of being pre-sales, maybe I go to post-sales, or can I get into consulting or something of that nature?
Yeah, that's definitely a good strategy for people, I think. I guess the only other that I would recommend is if you are someone out there listening and you think this might be happening at your company or is bound to happen at your company, maybe you should make that top 5, top 10 list of who you would call and put that somewhere that you can find it should something like that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a good point, because who do you reach out and why do you reach out to a person at a certain time? And I think about it, a lot of times people reach out only when they want something, right? How long did they maintain the relationship? I've learned, try to keep some form of ongoing relationship with my network. And it doesn't have to be constant, but everyone posts, hey, I got a new certification, I took a new role, I got promoted, I had a work anniversary. It's always good just to ping them, whether it's, hey, congrats on that new role, congrats on your work anniversary. Send them a message or a text saying, hey, how are you doing? How you been? It's been a while. Let's catch up. And it doesn't have to be every month. It could be literally once a year. And it keeps people in mind. I also think it's really important to publish content. Just like you do your podcast, I publish a lot around Toastmasters because I've been deeply involved with them. So a lot of times I would post, hey, I did this, I won a award. I won best speech. And a lot of times that came up when I was out there looking, and people I hadn't seen in years. They're like, hey, I know we haven't talked in a while, but I followed you on LinkedIn, saw that you're in Toastmasters. Great job at that. Hey, I've always thought about doing that. Can you tell me more about it? That rapport that we may have had years ago just picked right up. Just like those old friends that you might have had like in elementary school, right? You had those deep friendships in 5th grade. You may have lost contact after high school. People got married and had kids, but then you just pick right up. Like, hey, you're in town. Let's get together for dinner. And you just pick right back up. I find it really important to maintain some form of relationships with all my networks, so that when I did reach out and say, hey, I'm looking for a job, it wasn't about what can you do for me.
So you had been doing that all along, regardless of whether that was going to happen or not.
Yeah, because once again, it's a small arena out there. And it's always interesting to see where people land and where they're going. And tech is always changing. So you see the products that are out there that are coming and going.
afraid we'll have to cut it there this week for part 1 of the discussion with Jason. Any idea who you would call if this happened to you? If you haven't thought about that list, I would reiterate to you it's good to have some people in mind. And maybe it's good to start connecting with people in your network more often than you are now. That's a lesson that Jason has taught me. Make sure that amongst the busy lives we all have, that we're still making time to connect with people in our industry, people in our professional network, inside and outside our company. This discussion with Jason reminded me of episode 317, where we talked about this concept of a harbor pilot that can help you dock your cruise ship at a port, which is like the company where you want to work. Jason shared a lot of lessons about seeking out that harbor pilot, leveraging people he knew inside specific companies to help connect him with the right people to get a discussion, to allow them to meet him and understand that he's a strong candidate for the type of person they're looking for specific roles. Even if your timing isn't right when you contact a company or a hiring manager, you can still make a connection with that person. You can still get to know them. And who knows what might happen down the road if you plant some seeds now. I love the fact that Jason encourages us to go to in-person technology events. If you're not doing that, that's one of my number 1 tips to make sure and do. Go to meetup groups anywhere inside your areas of interest, whether it's in technology or not in technology. Even if you go to a meetup group outside of technology, you might be surprised how many people are in the tech space and have other interests. It's a great way to meet other people and a gateway to more connections. I really liked what Jason said about being part of that supportive chat group of other people who had also had an unexpected job loss. They might need a helping hand, an introduction to someone else at a different company, and Jason was willing to do that based on the people he had met, even if an opportunity didn't work out. Would you be willing to do that for someone else? Don't forget that if you are someone in this situation and you have been laid off or you're afraid there might be layoffs at your company, we have 2 resources that can help you. You can visit our layoff resources page at nerd-journey.com/layoff resources. And this is a page with a listing of the most impactful conversations we've had on the show on the topic of layoffs, whether it's with industry experts that have a perspective on layoffs or technologists not so different than you who have been through it and came out the other side for their next opportunity. There's also the Career Uncertainty Action Guide you can find at nerd-journey.com/uncertainty guide. This has the 5 pillars of career resilience and a number of AI prompts to help you work through overwhelm, financial planning, and a layoff scenario. And maybe you know someone else whose story about being laid off and what they did next needs to be told, because the lessons learned need to be shared with the community. If you know someone who ought to be on the show to share that story, send us an email, nerdjourneypodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to try and get them on the show, and I'd be happy to send you some stickers in return for your good guest suggestion. Tune in next week to hear part 2 of Jason's story. See you then.
Farewell, listeners. Tune in next time as the journey continues. I'm John White at BJourneyman, for Nick Cordy at NetworkNerd_, signing off.
Adios.